Good morning, everybody. It's still Christmas, so don't lose sight of it. We are still surrounded by light, and the first reading is very hopeful. Rise up in splendor, O Jerusalem. These are hopeful words that we all need to hear all the time. But then, being hopeful doesn't mean being a Pollyanna. Pollyanna is a character in one of a novel. Pollyanna saw only good things, saw everything rosy. Hindi niya nakikita yung basura, ang nakikita niya lang ay magaganda. Kahit may mga sasamang nangyayari sa mundo, nakikita niya pa rin ay ang alapaap sa langit. Pollyanna, rise up in splendor, O Jerusalem. But then, the first reading puts us right back in context. See, darkness covers the earth. You cannot be a hopeless romantic and see only good things, because good news has to do with doing good. And like I always tell my clients as a counselor, my aim is not to make you feel good. My aim is to make you change. If you feel good about Christmas, well and good. That's your right. That's what we should feel. Christmas is good news. Christmas is joy. Christmas is light. Christmas is everything positive. But see, darkness covers the earth. In Laos, there are 17 dams made by China. All 17 dams bring the electricity back to China, not to Laos. China controls 6 countries in Southeast Asia. That's Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, Myanmar, and of course, our very own country. The 10-dash line. See, darkness covers the earth. But then, let me tell you the good news first. It's a story of contrasts. 1. Magi were not exactly hopeless believers. They were astrologers. They were people who looked at the stars and the alignment of the planets. They didn't have a word for planet, of course. Everything for them outside of the earth firmament was stars. They were astrologers. Their profession was to study the movement of the stars. But their work led them to something marvelous. By looking at the stars, it led them to search. Now Herod was the opposite of the astrologers. He was looking at threats. He was looking at darkness. He was looking at competition. And he didn't want to hear any of it. And therefore, when the Magi came and asked them, where is this newborn king born, so that we might go? Herod never answered the question. He asked another question, where did you find him? Could you please lead me to him when you find him? Herod was busy with his power, with his position, with his prestige, and saw nothing else but threats and competition. The Magi, upon seeing the star and seeing the boy, the Gospel says a boy, a child, not an infant. They saw the infant with the mother, which means to say that the Magi were searching for years. That child must have been at least 3 to 7 years old, which means to say that he was no longer an infant. They searched for the paidon, pedagogy, the root word of pedagogy. That means to say that the Magi were looking for a child. And Herod, in his calculating wickedness, was asking them, when did you start seeing the stars? He was calculating time. He was a very good politician. He knew how to count, and he was counting well, and that is why he had children, not infants, killed. From 2 years upwards. That meant to say that about a couple of hundred children were killed mercilessly by a politician who was counting the next election, the next choice of Caesar Augustus, because he had ambitions beyond being the king of one of the kingdoms of Israel at the time. But the Magi laid their goods, what they had, at the feet of the newborn king. So what did they have? It's gold, frankincense, and myrrh. That's all they had. That's what they had. And that's what they offered. Herod laid his hands on innocent children. The Magi laid their goods at the feet of the newborn king. Herod laid his hands in innocent children. The Magi, we are told, bent their knees and worshipped the child, the newborn king. Herod bent people's backs and their wills in fear and subjection. So, we have a lot of lessons to learn. Number one lesson, remain optimistic in a Christian way. Rise up in splendor, O Jerusalem, but be realistic. See, darkness covers the earth. So lesson number one for today, God manifests himself in many ways. And he manifested himself to the Magi through astrology. Many times we think God manifests himself only in prayer, by serving in church, by singing, by celebrating Mass like I do, by prayer, by doing charity, by being in a holy place. No, God is also in your workplace. And if you do not discover God in the Department of Agriculture, then you will do what we have been doing. The only country in Southeast Asia where we have now a shortage of onions, and a few months after a shortage of garlic, and then a few months after a shortage of sugar. It's all manipulated. All manipulated by people who are greedy, who see only dollar signs. God manifests himself in many ways. And he showed himself through science of astrology, not only through prayer and church and charity. But greed also manifests itself in many ways. The disappearing onions, and they become 600 pesos per kilo all of a sudden. Garlic. The farmers in the mountain provinces and in the provinces in general, in Mantalongon, in Cebu, they don't have cold storage. Only big businessmen who are in cahoots with people who are greedy in government can hide the onions. The farmers cannot. They have to give them away at a loss because they have no cold storage. They have no big trucks. Greed manifests itself in many ways. The disappearing sidewalks in Barangay Don Bosco. The streets that are being closed and turned into parking lots. The disappearing sidewalk all over the country. Greed manifests itself in many ways. The artificial scarcities of anything you can think of, including toilet paper and anything worldly and as seemingly useless as that object. But God's grace comes to us in special ways. We know this. This is the reason why you're here this morning. Because you believe in your heart that God comes to you despite the darkness. You rose up in splendor this morning and brought yourself to church because you believe in the sacraments. You believe in grace. You believe in the Mass. You believe in Holy Communion. You believe that your prayer can lead you to become a better person. But what do we need to do? Another lesson, the Magi were not in search for a baby. They were in search for a child. It took them years to see the child. They were persevering, nagpursige, perseguir in Spanish, pursige. napunyagi. That's what it means. You need to have patience, you need to have courage and the energy to do the opposite of what Russia and China are doing, and Iran and North Korea. The communist ideology has done the world a whole lot of damage. It's born of a lie. And those lies are the bottom of fake news and false narratives. It's the bottom of the enmity going on in social media right now. It's the basis of disappearing sidewalks and artificial scarcities of onions and garlics and sugar. The Magi were in search for years, and they pushed on. They went on searching, and when they found him, they bent their knees in worship. Your job, your profession, your intelligence, your reason, your capacity to weed out untruth and lies in your life can start you on a journey of search for the ultimate truth. But only faith can lead you to the newborn King. Only faith. In the beginning, the Magi were astrologers. When they saw the newborn King, they became believers. I have two questions for me and you today. One, what will you lay down at the feet of the Holy Child? Second, what untruth do you need to let go so that you can, like the astrologers, the Magi, find the truth, the Word of God incarnate?